And this is one of those classic yellow tunnels with a yellow light. Haven't had much of that today. Oh, and right now, this is the city of St. Gallen. This is the motorway that goes around under St. Gallen, which is an 80 kph motorway. Used to be 100 kph, and then they lowered it to 80 for reasons. And I mean, okay, here there's construction, fair. The constructions are like 100 meters. And now the construction is over and we're still at 80. What sense does that make? Ciao, this is Mario, a Swiss car guy on YouTube, and today I'm driving around in my 2008 Lexus LS600H. I recently did a video where I vented my frustrations I got with speed cameras, and I got a few comments that reminded me of some things I should have said in that video that I didn't. So I want to just pick them up now and talk about them in this separate video, where I'm going to rant even more about speed cameras. In that video about speed cameras, I added a text remark that in Switzerland it is forbidden to communicate the location of a speed camera. And I want to go into a bit more of detail to what that actually means. So it used to be until I think about 2013 that in the radio, whenever you had like the traffic news, they would then tell you, oh look, there's a radar there and there's a radar there. Then they stopped altogether because a law passed that forbids the communication of the positions of speed cameras. And that doesn't just mean that the radio cannot communicate. Media are generally not allowed to do it, but also private persons are not allowed to do it. So there's been people fined for sharing in Facebook groups where, you know, a speed camera, a mobile one was on a certain day. There are people who got fined for being in WhatsApp groups and sharing the info there. So Switzerland is very totalitarian about this. And it goes so far that if you notice, even Google Maps will not show the locations of speed cameras in Switzerland. It will happily do it in other countries, but in Switzerland it won't. And now you might say, well, wow. I mean, Swiss law is so tough that even an American tech giant like abides to it. I would say yes, but you have to also keep in mind that the Google Maps headquarters for the EMEA region is in Zurich. So yes, Google wants to abide to Swiss law. But now you might say, what do I care? I just have my navigation system with those points of interest activated, or my, Waze app or Google Maps where I added the points of interest. Yeah, you care if you get caught, because as you can imagine, Swiss law is very strict. And not only can they give you a fine, but they're allowed to confiscate and destroy the device in question. So if you have an app on your phone that tells you where the speed camera locations are, the police, if they catch you, they can confiscate and destroy your phone, which, besides the monetary loss that you would incur, it's also kind of stupid. If they now take my phone, until I get a replacement and everything, it's going to take me maybe a few hours or days, and then how do I recover my number? And you really don't want that happening. So even if you have like a 10-year-old portable GPS by Garmin or TomTom, which has these points of interest, if the police stop you and they find that on you, they can confiscate it and destroy it. Whereas, well, the 10-year-old Garmin, I guess it's not a big loss, but of course you'll get a fine, so you do not want that. But now you might ask, well, Mario, if you're not allowed to communicate where the speed cameras are, can you at least take some countermeasures, as in like radar warning device or radar jammers? Well, obviously not, because we're in Switzerland, right? So if you used one of those, things do not look good. In fact, as for radar warning devices, and I think radar jammers are maybe even worse, you're not even allowed to transport them in a car. You're certainly not allowed to sell them in Switzerland, but if I only just transported it in my car, in the trunk, that would already be an offense. So the use of speed camera avoiding technology is highly discouraged in Switzerland because you get punished quite severely. Then again, I must say, I don't know if you can go to prison for it.
You can.
Because if you can't go to prison for it and you can't lose your license for it,
You cannot.
then it might still be worth it. Because for speeding, you can lose your license and you can go to prison.
You can get a monetary punishment of up to 180 day fines. Day fines depend on your income and can go up to 3,000 francs per day. That means the total punishment can be over 500,000 Swiss francs. Of course, you can also be sentenced to prison. However, there is no provision for suspending your license. So if your license is all you care about, it might be worth it.
Another thing I didn't mention in my previous video were average speed cameras. Because, well, in Switzerland there aren't that many. In fact, there is exactly one in the Bergtunnel in Bad St. That was installed about 10 years ago, and fortunately it has remained the only one in the whole country. And in my opinion, average speed cameras, they are the worst kind of speed cameras. Because, well, if you don't know that it's there, it's kind of the same as a normal speed camera. But if you know that it's there, then you know that while you're driving through that tract that's being monitored by the average speed camera, you will do nothing but look at your speedo. Because it's not just a moment, it's just kilometers that you're trying not to exceed the speed limit. So I don't know how this can be considered a safety feature. But it's actually quite funny that Switzerland only has one average speed camera, because as far as I'm aware, average speed cameras were actually invented in Switzerland. Because of course, they were almost accidentally invented when they started using cameras to track cars entering and exiting tunnels to increase the safety, to be able to monitor them. Then they realized that they can actually calculate the average speed quite accurately by comparing the two images. And this of course led to the development of the average speed camera, which are fairly ubiquitous in other countries. Personally, being a dual citizen, so I have both Italian and Swiss citizenship, I know the Italian Autostrada quite well, and they have had average speed cameras for, I think, about 15 years. And they are basically everywhere, even on the not privatized parts of the motorway. They have a system called the Vergilius, which is basically the same as the safety tutor they used on the private Autostrada in Italy. And I don't know it for a fact, but I believe it to be true that the Italian average speed camera system does not play well with Swiss number plates. I mean, I'm 100% sure it can read them, but what happens after that is something I'm not so sure with, because personally I always drive the speed limit, also when I'm in Italy, of course, always. But I've heard stories from other people who, pretty much drive flat out once they're in Italy, or they go really fast. I mean, one guy even once told me a story about how he allegedly drove 1,000 kilometers in 6 hours in Italy in his Mercedes SL55 AMG. He tells me that in his experience, the Swiss number plates don't really get caught by Italian average speed cameras. I don't know it for a fact, but I actually have never heard of anybody driving a Swiss car with a Swiss number plate getting a fine for driving too fast by an average speed camera. Oh, and that guy, he didn't just, do it once or twice. He did it like 10 years in a row and never got anything. And I don't think there are technical reasons why it wouldn't work. Because Swiss number plates, yes, they are a bit smaller and different from European number plates, but that should not be a reason why that wouldn't work, why they couldn't be scanned, why the people couldn't be caught. I think the reason why the Swiss basically have a free pass on the Autostrada is because of laziness. Because you see, as far as I understand, the safety tutor system, so the average speed cameras in Italy, they are a highly automated system. Basically, they check, okay, you've speeded, then they automatically look up the number plate, the owner, then they initiate all the procedures. And with a Swiss person, that's not really possible because they do not have access to a database of Swiss motorists. So if they want to find a Swiss person, they have to make a formal request to Switzerland to provide them with that data, something that they are entitled to do, and Switzerland will do because there is a collaboration treaty between the two countries. The thing is, somebody has to do manual labor for that. It's not automated. It's not like when an Italian person gets called or when a German person gets called, where you have these unified European databases which just get tapped into by the computers and everything is completely automated. No, with a Swiss person, somebody has to take this case into their hands and they have to do something about it. And I'm not saying that the Italians are lazy, but I think this is where you go away from easy money, which everything is automated, to, oh my God, I have to pay somebody to do the work in order to get the money for the fine. So you get to a point where, I mean, it's not really worth the effort. And so I reckon they just don't bother. But maybe, and that's likely, maybe I'm very wrong about this. So if you know somebody from Switzerland, or maybe even yourself, who's gotten a fine for speeding in an average speed camera in Italy, please comment down below, let me know. Because all the people I talked to about this, everybody said, yeah, I know, I got a fine from Italy once. And I asked them, was it from an average speed camera? And they went like, no, it was a stationary speed camera, it was somewhere in town or something like that. So I think my theory holds true, even though personally, I never speed, especially not in Italy. So I've ranted enough about speed cameras. I mean, I personally don't like them. Yes, there are legitimate points to driving too fast being dangerous, but I mean, there are roads where driving fast is like not a big deal, and there are roads where I think even the existing speed limits are too high, that are too dangerous. And I personally, I'm somebody, I would like to not have speed cameras. I would also like to have speed limits that actually reflect how dangerous a place is and not just randomly applied. But again, I'm just ranting again, so let's stop it here. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you like this kind of video. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing to my channel so you can watch more rants of me while I drive places. So if that's your thing. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye. Le tunnel. Il tunnel. Wow, tunnel might actually be one of those words that are the same in every language I know. I mean, in Italian you could also say galleria, so yeah. But tunnel is a perfectly fine word.